Coming to you entirely pre-recorded from the Garage of Solitude here in Whitestone, Queens, I am Mario-Francisco Robles, and this is episode 16 of the Superman on Film podcast. A quick programming note, moving forward, future filmings and recordings of this show are going to be taking place at a brand new proper Fortress of Solitude. Because as I mentioned a few episodes ago, I've been on the precipice of making some very major life changes. And I had to make I had to make the most difficult decision I've ever had to make in my entire life. And I'm currently living elsewhere. I've had to leave my home, and I'm now creating a brand new paradigm of relationships with my kids and navigating into a very interesting, but ultimately very good-looking future lies ahead for your boy here, but there's going to be a little bit of a cocoon period for me as I try to rebuild and grow and battle back from what has been many years in the making, a big change that had to happen. So, this is probably the last one from the Garage of Solitude, so let's make it a good one, shall we? The thing we got to start with, of course, is our countdown. We got James Gunn's Superman is now 29 weeks away, and this week was the week we've all been waiting for, wasn't it? After all kinds of rumors for months as to when we might see the Superman teaser trailer, we finally got it. We got it on December 19th. On Thursday, December 19th, we got to see the trailer at last. And what a time to be alive. That's why this episode is entirely dedicated to what a time to love Superman. You know, because I've often complained on this show and across my other older podcasts that really being a Superman fan is pretty tough. Being a Superman fan tends to mean that you're waiting forever for someone to make a good, logical decision about his big screen future. You know, we've spent many years kind of watching Superman languish, watching Superman be second or third fiddle to whatever's popular nowadays. We've seen Superman just kind of be treated like he's this outdated thing that needs to be revised and changed if modern audiences are ever to accept him. You know, being a Superman fan tends to mean that, you're not doing so hot these last couple of decades, really. But and even if you're someone who loved Henry Cavill's Superman, right? You haven't had a great run either because you wanted him to come back. You wanted more for his Superman. And unfortunately, his Superman also kind of just, that run did not exactly go well. So it doesn't matter, how you felt about any of the recent attempts to relaunch Superman. You've got to admit it has not been easy, and Superman has not exactly been the most popular hero since the turn of the century. So, yes, this whole episode is going to be dedicated to how wonderful it is to be a Superman fan right now. And with that in mind, let's go ahead and get into our Superman on Film update. So a couple of items, aside from the trailer, there are a couple of interesting little quotes I would like to share with you because, there's been lots of chatter about the red trunks that have now made a return to the big screen Superman outfit. After missing that during the Henry Cavill tenure, after the comics for a long time ditching the red shorts, now we know that they're back for James Gunn's Superman. But did we know that it was actually actor David Corenswet that we have to thank for that? That's right, because apparently they weren't, James Gunn and company were not very gung-ho one way or the other as to which way to go. They were testing out all kinds of costume options, and apparently Gunn himself had kind of been in the no red trunks camp, and then it was David himself who kind of went to bat for the idea, and I've got a great quote here that explains why that decision was made. So let's go ahead and read that. We were trying on all these different versions, and we screen tested with trunks and no trunks, Gunn said. And one of the things David said is that Superman wants kids to not be afraid of him. He's an alien. He's got these incredible powers. He shoots beams out of his eyes. He's incredibly powerful and could be considered scary. He wants people to like him. He wants to be a symbol of hope and positivity. So he dresses like a professional wrestler. I kind of like that. He dresses like a professional wrestler. He dresses in a way that makes people unafraid of him, that shows that hope, that shows that positivity. And that really clicked in for me. So that's an interesting idea. You know, the idea that one of the reasons why a modern Superman would keep the red trunks is because it knows it makes him look a little silly, a little hokey, a little more, approachable and nice. He's not this scary flying alien that could throw a car at you. I mean, he could be. But when you see this guy in these bright colors and these red shorts, he looks much more approachable and much nicer. And I guess that's just an interesting way to look at it. So thank you, David, for making that decision, because I think it's a good one. I think it's a very good one. But now let's do it. Let's talk about the trailer. For those of you who would like to know how I initially felt on it, you can actually watch that here on the Superman on Film YouTube channel. It's the video I uploaded right before this one. I filmed my live reaction Thursday morning at 9 a.m. when the trailer hit the web. I filmed my reaction, and it's a nice little 5.5-minute clip, so I strongly suggest you check that out, especially if you like to see me cry. But anyway, so now that I've had a couple days and many, many more viewings, I absolutely love the trailer. But it's interesting to compare it to what I was discussing last week about which Superman film might this draw from. Might they take a page out of while marketing this one? It actually had the most in common with the Superman Returns teaser. Because even though it didn't have like some kind of Jor-El narration over it, the general thing was, here are a bunch of really interesting images and things that we all associate with Superman. And we're not going to really tell you what the storyline of the film is, but we're going to give you all of these sort of touchstone, hallmark elements of the Superman universe and get you to kind of get those Superman feels and hope that those Superman feels inspire you to go to the movies when that film eventually comes out. Superman Returns was very much like that, and this one is a lot like that. There's pretty much no plot details released. It's literally just all these different interesting shots that I imagine are meant to make you go, whoa, there's a lot going on in this movie. How do we go from there to there? And there's a kaiju, and there's a robot, and there's a what? It seemed like, they wanted the visuals to really kind of, do most of the heavy lifting. But thankfully, the visuals were very wonderfully supported by some amazing music. We got our first tastes of John Murphy's score this week. That's right. Aside from the trailer, we also got a little bit of it with this motion poster that had come out the day before, which, by the way, now bears the official tagline for the movie. We all remember the one from 1977. Off camera here, I have the original poster from 1977, where it says, "You'll believe a man can fly." And this time around, the big tagline is, "Look up." And I love that. Look up. In the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane. It's great Superman iconography. Look up, we're going to see Superman. But also look up, hope, right? It's there to inspire hope and give you a feeling. Look up, all right? Things aren't bad. You're going to be okay. Look up. Things are looking up. So I like that it's look up. But so for this trailer, we got to hear the music that's going to be in this film. And look, I've been a big proponent of something completely original. I really didn't want any John Williams-ness in this movie whatsoever. I've made that clear, and it's how I feel. I kind of wish that we get something that's totally new, no more homages to the Williams. Lots of different Superman projects over the last 40 years have turned to Williams, and I'm just like, there's a lot more themes out there. And every Superman, truthfully, has their own theme, so I hope this one does as well. Well, for this trailer, it's an interesting sort of reinvention of the Williams music. And I kind of get the sense that it's going to be like we get these little flourishes that are very Williams-esque and things that are going to remind you of it. But I still ultimately think we're going to get a wholly original theme for this Superman. I hope we do, at least. I would love to hear what John Murphy came up with, because what he did with this was kind of like the best of all worlds so far, because it almost sounded like John Williams by way of Hans Zimmer. You know, Hans Zimmer was who inherited Superman from Williams when he was making Man of Steel, and he made something totally original. But Zimmer's work also incorporated electric guitar and rock and percussion elements, because he wanted that, you know, this is an American hero. We need American rock and roll instruments mixed in with the orchestra. And it seems John Murphy feels the same way, because there's electronic guitar, and it's got some oomph to it. And meanwhile, it's not like the full orchestra doing the full Superman fanfare. It's just like little bit, here's a few bars of the Ma Kent Smallville theme from the original movie. Here's a bar or two of the ba 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 ba, and then that's it. We don't do the ba ba ba. You know, like they found a way to keep it very subtle. It's a very nice, easy, light touch on this Williams influence. So I'm hoping that was mainly for the trailer, mainly to get people around the world to be like, oh my goodness, it's Superman. This is cool. But I really do hope that he gets his own legit original theme in the movie, and that we only just get a couple of these little moments here and there of the Williams. But overall, you know, I love that we started. The very first shot was kind of like right out of Man of Steel during first flight, when Superman tries to fly in that for the first time. He crash lands on the side of, like, you know, snowy mountains and hills out near the Fortress of Solitude. And this time, once again, similar to that, we see him crashing into the snow, but rather than watching him climb out the way we saw Henry Cavill's Superman, when the snow clears, we see an extremely vulnerable Superman. He's laying in a fetal position, and he's bleeding out of the mouth. And the more you listen, the more you hear that he's actually wheezing. And I found this a really fascinating way to start. It's a way sort of right out of the gate to subvert expectations. Because one of the things people always say about Superman over the years, that he's too perfect. He's too impervious. Nothing hurts him. Unless you have Krypton, you can't do anything. And that's a really lazy character to have, because he's just way too powerful. And, you know, you always kind of hear that he's too perfect and hard to root for, because he's never really, truly vulnerable. And yet, this Superman, the first impression this Superman gives the world is he's quite vulnerable, right? Because we don't see any kryptonite anywhere. There's no green anything. He doesn't, you know, he's literally laying there just bleeding out of the mouth. He mainly looks like he just got his butt beat. He looks like he just lost a battle. And something I've been talking about here on this show is I like my Superman a little less powerful. I like when he can be hurt. So here's hoping that whatever hurt him here was not a kryptonite thing, but that this is overall a Kal-El that has some vulnerability, that if he's going up against something that is massive and strong, he will actually take some battle damage, and it will be a difficult fight for him. I've always thought that that's the best way to handle Superman, you know? But yeah, so we open with this thing that's very vulnerable, and then everything just like all the different shots, it's so like poignant and grand feeling with this music playing that's very dramatic and epic, you know? I found it interesting too that like the first chunk of the trailer, it's all familiar imagery. Aside from him crash landing and bleeding out of the mouth, all the other images we see, if you're a normie who's never read a comic book, if you're just a random person who only knows Superman from the Christopher Reeve movies or even possibly from the Henry Cavill movies, you know these visuals. You know, we see Clark entering the Daily Planet. We see the Daily Planet sort of bullpen. We see Lois and Clark looking at each other. We see him on at the Kent farm hugging Jonathan Kent. Like, it's all very like classic Superman that anyone off the street would know. Oh, look at that. They're doing a Superman story. Interesting. But then he whistles. And we start seeing something running in the distance. And that's when the words pop on the screen, "It begins." And it's interesting because right after that is when all of the unfamiliar stuff comes. It almost seems like they were doing that on purpose. Like the first, 30, 40 seconds are like, here's a very familiar Superman world. And then, now here's Krypto, here's a Lex you've never seen, here's a Kaiju, here's Hawkgirl and Guy Gardner, here's a world that is much bigger and comic booky than any of you have ever seen, and a bunch of characters you probably are going to have to ask your nerd friends about after you finish seeing the trailer. So I found that really interesting too. Like it was almost like just, here's the familiar, and then here's all the new, which is funny because that's one thing I was saying in the last episode, right? I was saying that I feel like this trailer needs to try to kind of lean into what the previous Superman trailers had done, in that give us something familiar, but then promise us something different and exciting. And that's exactly what they did. So you're welcome, James, for the marketing advice. I have a new address. I'll forward you so you could send me my cut. Okay. Because by the way, this trailer is killing it. Okay. I don't know how much money there is to be made on a trailer, but if Warner Brothers is monetizing their YouTube channel, they made an awful lot of coin these last few days, because the trailer is gone. Let me read an interesting quote from Mr. Gunn himself about the overall success of the trailer, because there are people who love to say that Superman is dead, that Superman is not popular anymore, and that, it's time to move on or update or all this kind of stuff. But check out this little factoid, okay? James Gunn posted later on that very same day that the trailer came out. He said, Krypto really did take us home. With over 250 million views and 1 million social posts, Superman is officially the most viewed and the most talked about trailer in the history of both DC and Warner Brothers. How about that? That happened pretty quick. And I see all these people like tracking the views across all these different channels. Like it's doing insane numbers. And there's the Warner Brothers version of it. There's the DC version of it. There's like fan accounts that have re-uploaded it. Like it has been disseminated all these different ways. And each of the different ways has millions of views. It's like, for whatever reason, the world is just ready to embrace this Superman. So, if you, like I said, what a time to be alive, finally. But, going back to the trailer too, just a couple of things, I love that we're getting that classic Luthor. And then again, for film fans, they've never seen this Luthor before. They saw Gene Hackman, the real estate developer, hiding in a train station underground. And they've seen Jesse Eisenberg, sort of tech wizard, who's still got all of his hair. And, it's just, they've never seen like the classic, here's the bald, megalomaniacal Luthor. And we saw that in this. So I feel like that must have been cool for it was definitely cool for me. And then just powerful images of like what looks like a war-torn area and people running for cover and running for safety. And a little boy raising a flag on a makeshift flagpole. And atop the flag is the Superman symbol. And he's looking to the sky and he's calling for Superman, save us. It's like that stuff, that just kills me. I cannot, I need this movie already. Okay. I just need it. James, my email address is supermanonfilm@gmail.com. Just send me a link. Thank you. There's also, questions, right? There's questions because when we first were told that the trailer was about to arrive, we were shown a 30-second teaser to the teaser trailer. And in that 30-second teaser to the teaser trailer, we see the citizens of Metropolis all grabbing cameras and phones and whatever and looking to the sky. And there's almost this sense of like wonder and joy. Superman's coming, So you almost get the sense that Superman is truly beloved in Metropolis. And yet in the trailer that we ended up getting, there's a disturbing shot of like he's walking through like an angry mob and somebody throws debris at his head. And it looks, like the citizens are mad at him. And I'm just very curious as to what that could be about. You know, does Superman do something questionable in the movie? Or perhaps was he framed? You know, because Lex Luthor loves to put out Bizarro. There have been lots of versions where Bizarro starts terrorizing Metropolis. And at first, the citizens of Metropolis can't tell the difference between them. So they start blaming Superman for the bad things that Bizarro, the evil clone, has been doing. So I wonder if it's something like that. Either way, I've got questions. If there was something in the trailer that I was a little bit on, it was actually the design of the kaiju, if I'm being rather picky here. To me, the kaiju looked a little goofy. You know, I don't know who that character is supposed to be. I don't know if it's a well-known DC Comics monster that I've never seen before. But something about the design, I mean, he looked kind of like he should have been in the How to Train Your Dragon live-action remake that's coming. You know, there was something sort of like silly about the way the kaiju is designed. That was like my one main quibble, you know. And also, I will say, I wish the suit fit tighter, at least from the waist down. You know, the top I think looks pretty good. The top doesn't look as wrinkled as I thought it was going to. And since he's standing tall and he's in great shape, I think from the belt up, he looks awesome. But when you look from the waist down, like, it does look a little kind of puffy and loose, and I do wish that the bottom half looked a little better. I will say that. But also it's interesting too. I feel like all the shots involving Lois are interesting because it almost feels like there's this urgency to their connection. You know, we first see them lock eyes in the bullpen at the Daily Planet. And then there's just a few moments here and there. There's a kiss. There's the floating and kind of dancing together midair, kind of a la Superman Returns. And then there's this closing moment where it looks like he's about to fly out and deal with this existential threat. And she's holding his hand. And then they don't kiss, they hug. And there's just like this intensity to their relationship that's already coming through from just these quick little glimpses. You could tell that the two of them are very important to each other. And I love that. So overall, I think the trailer looks great. I have questions. I want to find out more about what exactly the plot of the movie is. But I think they've begun the marketing for the film in a very strong way. And here we go. You know, apparently the world is very, very excited about Superman. So let's go ahead and dive right into our topic then. What a time to love Superman. Because you see, that arrived on December 19th. But a mere 17 days prior, what happened? 17 days prior, the world was treated to the series finale of Superman and Lois. And listen, if you have not yet seen this series and you count yourself amongst the fans of Superman, you need to check it out. Okay. We got 53 episodes of that show. That means you've basically got 53 hours of great Superman storytelling to sink your teeth into. And look, it's a TV show. It's on CW. There are times where it does get a little soapy. There's times where the subplots kind of cloud out the main plot and you kind of want to like tell them to focus on the right stuff. You know, it's not an absolutely perfect TV series, but it is really close. And for a Superman fan to get a chance to spend 53 hours getting to see a Clark Kent that we've never really seen before. We've never seen Clark, the family man. And we've never seen a Superman pushed into the situations that this series pushed him into. So through 53 episodes, that show was just a gift. And it's gone now. It's over now. And it's a bittersweet feeling because it ended great. I feel like they nailed it on the finale, but it's a finale. It's over, you know, so it's bittersweet. It's like, great job wrapping it up, but I wish you hadn't wrapped it all up. You know, I'm going to miss the show. But, you know, I went back through it and I have some notes about it. You know, I'm not going to spoil anything because just in case there are people who have not watched it yet, which I get the sense that there are plenty who have not given it a chance for the same reason I wasn't initially going to give it a chance. You know, when I saw it being launched as more or less a spin-off of the Arrowverse, I was kind of like thanks, but no thanks. I'm probably going to skip that too, because I did skip the whole Arrowverse. I didn't even watch Smallville. To me, the whole CW DC relationship over the years, it wasn't something that called to me, especially because when Smallville came out, it was a network more known for teen dramas like Dawson's Creek. And it felt like, oh, this is the teen drama soap opera version of DC. I'm good. At that time I was just starting college and I was kind of moving in a different direction, and it just all that CW stuff right over my head. So when they announced Superman and Lois, I was really quick to just be like, well, never mind that. But I'm so glad I watched it from the premiere on. I was not a late bloomer. I watched that show from the moment it premiered, and I watched the finale the night that it happened. It was one of the only shows where I'm like, a DVR won't do. I need to see this now, right in front of me, But without getting into spoilers, in case you want to check it out, and it is available on Max. Okay. If you have, if you didn't DVR it on the CW and you're like, how am I going to watch these episodes now? Don't worry. The entire series has been uploaded to Max, so you can watch it there. Okay. But in terms of non-spoiler things that I could say about the episode that I thought were phenomenal, is they, sometimes when you wrap up a show, especially a show like this where they had apparently wanted to go 7 seasons, and then everything kind of got truncated and shortened down to just being 4 seasons. And not even just that, but this 4th season was cut down to just 10 episodes. And in order to save money, they cut a lot of the actors and supporting players out of the series to make this work. So with all that in mind, sometimes when a show wraps up, there's still kind of plot threads that were left loose. There were things that we never, that were set up that were never properly concluded. But in this particular case, they went through each of the main characters and they gave everyone their proper due. Every thread was wrapped up throughout this final season. And the finale itself did a really good job of like giving a proper send off to each character. So I thought that was a great way to honor the characters. Also, they did a wonderful thing when it comes to Bizarro and Doomsday. If you haven't seen the show and you know those villains, I need you to check out the show so you can see how this series handled those two, because the finale included an incredibly touching scene and touching moment that brought the Superman Doomsday fight to an unbelievably peaceful conclusion. Yes, Superman and Doomsday, peaceful conclusion. How about that? We also got the big live action super fight between Superman and Lex Luthor in his suit. We've seen Lex in a green and purple suit for decades. If you're someone who's read the comics and you played Injustice, and a lot of the animated series have shown Lex building his big mech suit that has a kryptonite, power-ups. But this time, we got to see it in live action. Superman and Lex fighting one-on-one, hovering in the sky. It was everything was done right. And Doomsday is a comic-accurate Doomsday in this final episode, too. Like, the way he's designed and the way he looks, it's like they nailed it. I'm sorry, CW, I had you all wrong, okay? And we got a storyline that is very all-star Superman as we got into this final season. And I think that might be one of the reasons, again, why the series had to end. Some people get mad at James Gunn and DC Studios because they feel like they are the ones really who pushed to shut down the series to avoid overlap between what they're doing and the series. And, there are a few things in the show that's like, oh, we kind of know that James Gunn wants to go in that direction. And that's what they did. They did All-Star. There's a thing involving crypto. There's a few things that is just like, oh, okay. If you're James Gunn and you're trying to map out this whole new world for Superman to play in, you can't have a series that's also kind of telling a very similar story, using very similar villains, using, you know what I mean? So I understand, I know it stinks to see the show end, but I kind of get it. But yeah, it has a very all-star Superman feel, the story. So if you love that book, you'll also love this finale. And one of the things I really adore about it is that, Superman's mission on Earth should never just be about him saving people, or him using his powers in all these cool ways. A proper Superman story always needs to show the way he inspires others to be better, the way he brings hope to the table and pushes humanity to be better today than they were yesterday. And in this finale, we also, like, as they were wrapping everything up, we were basically shown that Superman and Lois go on to use their notoriety and go on to use all of their years of hard work and helping others to start a foundation that helps people help those in need. And it becomes this whole huge story that they are inspiring humanity to be better and to help. And I'm like, that's how a good Superman story should go, It was weird. It was weird. At some point, there is a time flash forward. That's all I'll say. And when we see one of the sons as an adult, he's played by Lois's husband in real life. I don't know the actor's name, but Bitsy Tulloch is married to the guy from Grimm, who looks like Superman, by the way. When they were looking to cast someone, I used to suggest him because he's got the jaw and the cleft and the blue eyes and the dark hair, and he looks like, someone who could be Superman. So they made him Jonathan, and when he walked in, I'm like, this is weird because he's playing his wife's son. So that was a little unique. But aside from that, though, I love that in this flash forward, we find out that Superman becomes a grandpa several times over. And for someone who always clung to Superman's story as this story of, solitude, of this orphan, of this alien from another planet that came into the world alone and then slowly, started building his found family. He was adopted in Smallville and he had friends growing up, and little by little, his supporting players, his friends, starts to grow out. But this all began with an orphan crash landing in a field. So this story that now, it brings him to a place where he's got all these friends. He's got all this family. He's got grandkids. He's got, it's just a beautiful and rewarding way to try and wrap up his story, and ultimately, a Superman series that boils down to the following is the ultimate Superman series, because the final scene comes down to a message of joy, hope, forgiveness, wonder, friendship, family, and love. Like any good Superman story, those are the morals of the story for Superman and Lois. And that is Cal's final big message that he imparts with us. So I just love that. Any Superman story where the moral of the story is joy, hope, forgiveness, wonder, friendship, family, and love, that is a Superman story that will always be worth my time. So yes, and overall, the series gave Superman his happy ending. So if you're someone who's always wondered how would Superman's story logically conclude? Is he just going to live forever and watch everyone around him die? And he's the last man on Earth as the Earth gets swallowed up by the sun in a few thousand years? You hear me, Mark Miller? That was an interesting choice. But, does it go that way? What way does it go? And in this series, we get perhaps one of the most beautiful, happy Superman endings for that character. So again, strong recommendation. Aside from that, the Superman winning streak continues here because not only is the trailer breaking records, which means everyone's excited about the movie, And not only was the Superman and Lois finale a phenomenal finale, but even in the original medium that he comes from, even in the comic book genre, Superman and DC are having a great comeback. They've launched a brand new line of Superman comics called Absolute Superman, along with Absolute Batman. And there's a few, I think there's more in the works, but the Absolute line is absolutely crushing it to the point where you've got industry trades like the Hollywood Reporter doing, puff pieces about DC Comics having a absolute comeback year, because those comics are doing so well that they have to keep ordering reprints. Like, this sort of stuff hasn't happened in a bit. All right. DC is on fire right now. And then we've also got the fact that Superman, the Christopher Reeve story on Max, is now streaming. And it's this wonderful doc. I'm in the middle of it. I haven't finished it yet. I started it a little bit too late at night one night, but I'm probably going to finish it this weekend, and I want to share some more detailed thoughts on it on the next week's show. But that film got incredible reviews and was a beautiful, thought-provoking, heartfelt look at Christopher Reeve and Superman, and it was one of the very first projects released with the DC Studios banner atop it. And that's going well also. So we got the trailer, we got the finale, we got the comics doing good, and we've got Superman, the documentary, out there all doing amazing work on Superman's name, getting people excited about and loving and reminiscing and looking forward to more Superman. And the last thing is even Creature Commandos, this little adult animated series from the DCU about all these wacky characters. It was the #1 series on Max this week. Max has a lot of series, okay? Max has a lot going on. It's arguably my favorite streaming service, and Creature Commandos was #1 this week. So I think it's easy to say DC is back, baby. DC is on fire. While Marvel's going around trying to get people excited and doing these weird nostalgic stunt castings and trying to rework their Captain America movie because apparently it keeps testing poorly. Like, while Marvel is trying to get people to believe in them again, DC is like, hey, we're here. We're back. We know things have been rough for a while, but now we got the right people calling the shots. And it looks like people are ready to re-embrace DC, and they're ready to re-embrace the Man of Steel. So I know I complain an awful lot about how much Superman fans have had to suffer over the years, but this is all about this. We're winning. We're winning right now. We're eating well. We're very well fed, and there's much more to come. So I hope you save some space for the more Superman goodness that's on the way. Okay. And I'm just going to end on one final note from the finale. Because, and this is going to be a hard one for me, but in the finale, as it was winding down, we have this narration from Superman about what is ultimately the most important thing in life. And it's all about love. And he says, I have the quote here. It makes life worth living. Do everything you can to find love, to give it, to hold it, because life, it goes by so fast. And I think that message really stuck with me, because I saw that on December 2nd, and within a couple weeks, I had made the decision that it's time for me to really do everything I could to find love, because unfortunately, it didn't work out. Attempt #1. So I don't want to end on a downer, but things are going to be just fine for your boy here. Things are going to be great. Me and my kids are like this, and the the future that lies ahead for myself looks filled with interesting opportunities and possibilities that I was not going to be able to take up until very recently. So big changes are coming, but I'm going to be here counting down to James Gunn's Superman with you and getting sappy about stories of love and forgiveness, because that's just the kind of guy I am. So I hope you enjoyed the show. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, like, rate, review, tell your friends, shoot an email over to supermanonfilm@gmail.com if you'd like to send me a message about anything. And until next week, life is chaos. Be kind. Up, up and away.